mentioned that these enhanced interrogation techniques are more effective than traditional techniques and therefore are necessary to gather some sources of information. So as we saw, some of the current techniques like asking direct questions and repetition, boring the truth out of these terrorists, they seem like they may not be effective. We did hear that 9 out of 10 people can be coerced in these methods, but when we look at these trained insurgents, they are definitely more prepared to be interrogated by such methods. So these things can be necessary. These techniques are often not effective on these people. And if we do say that, well, excuse me. Now the truth is that whenever we do want to use these enhanced interrogation techniques, we do go through the process of going through these traditional techniques first. So the fact that these may not be effective is kind of getting to the point where nothing would be effective anyways. My partner brought up that these insurgents have the permission from Allah to give up the information when they feel like they can no longer withhold it physically. And so in an article entitled Enhanced Interrogation's Work from the Washington Post, it says that the job of the interrogator is to safely help the terrorist do his duty to Allah, so he then feels liberated to speak freely. So if we use these traditional techniques and that person is trained to withhold information from those techniques, they would feel like they wouldn't be able to give up that information. But if we use the techniques and take that person to their limit, then they will talk freely, which means that we can get reliable information if they feel like they are to the point where they have no problem. They feel like they have permission from Allah to give this information. They have no reason to give false information. So, like I said before, all of this is not torture simply because it is so well controlled and regulated that things rarely escalate, things aren't allowed to escalate to the point of what would traditionally be called torture. When you think of torture, you rarely think of being slapped on the belly. You think of, having your knee, having your tendons cut and having your fingernails pulled out. And that's not the case. And even if we do look at the techniques that are used, they're only used when they are completely necessary. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Zubedai, and a third terrorist named Nareshi were the only 3 people to be waterboarded by the CIA. They tried other techniques on them and they weren't effective, so they used the controlled circumstances to escalate to only the level of technique that were necessary to get the information. And as far as getting less reliable information from these techniques, a Justice Department Bradbury, in a memo to the CIA, he says, "Your office has informed us that the CIA believes that the intelligence acquired from these interrogations has been a key reason why Al-Qaeda has failed to launch a spectacular attack in the West on September 11, 2001. So even those in the higher up positions believe that the information gained is invaluable, and since they do use other techniques first, it shows that this was the only way to gain this information. Another point I have here was the definition of torture that they used, extreme mental and physical stress. Now, if you argue that some of these techniques, such as the belly slap, things like that, are extreme physical stress, you can argue the same way that the traditional techniques are extreme mental stress. It's very hard to define, the line of what's extreme and what is just, a reliable and allowable technique. So, like we heard, most of these physical techniques do not have any lasting effects. And, she gave the example that a lot of kind of mental effects will be residual from waterboarding and such. But the mental game in that is the same mental game that's being played with traditional techniques.